Welcome to the Explainer. Look, if you're a fish keeper, you already know there's absolutely nothing quite like the thrill of breeding cichlids, right? I mean, watching a brooding pair successfully hatch a totally new generation, it's just incredibly rewarding. You look into your tank, you see all those tiny fry swimming around, and you can't help but feel a little proud. But as any seasoned aquarist will tell you, that initial joy, yeah, it's pretty quickly followed by a massive logistical puzzle. The inevitable crowding issues start kicking in, and suddenly your super peaceful underwater ecosystem starts feeling, well, a little tense. You're staring at your tank, checking out the growing fry, looking back at the parents, and it hits you. A major change has got to happen. Okay, let's dive into this. When is the exact right time to move your cichlid fry? Honestly, it's the most common dilemma we face in cichlid breeding. If you move them too early, you risk the health of those really delicate fry. But wait too long, you risk throwing the entire tank dynamics into absolute chaos. We need to lock down that perfect, optimal window for separation so these little guys can actually thrive in their own grow-out tank. See, fish keepers are constantly wrestling with a core conflict. On one hand, you've got limited tank space. On the other, the relentless biological drive of the parents gearing up for a second spawn. Now, the source actually points out something super fascinating here. To stave off that second spawn and manage the space issue, a lot of us try to just keep the population intact. We leave them all together, sometimes literally until the fry reach adulthood. But eventually, the pressure cooker of these two conflicting realities forces our hand, right? A separation decision absolutely must be made. So how do we know when that precise moment has arrived? Well, today we're going to use a really simple rule of three framework to figure it out. Clue number 1, behavioral red flags. You really don't need a biology degree to spot this first one. You just got to watch the parents. Ask yourself, are they acting like empty nesters ready to renovate? It's kind of like a human family where the parents are suddenly, baxing up the kids' childhood trophies because they're dying to turn that old bedroom into a home gym. The brooding pair is prepping for a brand new spawn, and they are sending some crystal clear signals that they want the current kids out of the house. These feelings translate into very specific, let's call them aggressive actions you need to keep an eye out for. First off, cleaning a flat rock. If you see the parents meticulously scrubbing a flat surface in the tank, yep, they're setting up the nursery for the next batch of eggs. Second, they become highly territorial. Remember that peaceful, super protective nature they had when the fry were tiny newborns? Yeah, that completely vanishes. And third, the biggest red flag of all, actively chasing the current fry away. They are officially done playing nice. The parents are literally evicting their own offspring to make room for the new spawn. The second you see this, it's time to step in. So that covers the mood of the tank. Let's shift gears from watching the parents' behavior to looking at some hard, physical data on the fry themselves. Clue number 2, measurement milestones. Okay, so the crucial thing here is nailing this chronological sweet spot. Starting at week 0, which is hatching, the ideal window actually opens up right around the 4-week mark. This is what we call the early separation window. By 6 weeks, so about a month and a half post-hatching, you're hitting the later end of this ideal time frame. So keep that 4 to 6 week mark in your head. That's your chronological guidepost. But hold on, we've got a really important caveat here. Time alone isn't some magic wand. This growth rate is heavily dependent on how aggressively you are feeding the fry. If you're doing a really light feeding schedule, 4 to 6 weeks might not even be close enough time. You, the hobbyist, actually have to put in the active work of providing enough nutrition to push their growth along this schedule. The actual physical goal we are aiming for here is exactly 1 to 1.5 centimeters in length. Regardless of whether it takes exactly 4 weeks or, maybe stretches to 6, this is the physical size the fry absolutely must reach. Once they hit that 1 to 1.5 centimeter mark, boom, they are physically robust enough to be successfully separated into their own grow-out tank. All right, now we arrive at the final, and honestly I think the most striking set of clues in our whole framework. You see, you don't always have to guess their size or rely entirely on your feeding schedule because nature is pretty amazing. The fish will literally show you when they're ready. Clue number 3, visual coloration cues. These visual indicators are incredibly specific to the species you're keeping. For example, if you're breeding jewel-cichlids, you're basically waiting for this really dramatic change in their body coloration. The juveniles will start to exhibit this incredibly vibrant red or pink coloration. It's a gorgeous, undeniable transformation. On the flip side, if you're breeding zebra-cichlids, the cue is totally different. You are looking for the appearance of very obvious vertical stripes. So once you see that vibrant pink pop on the jewel or those stark stripes lock in on the zebra, lock that image in your memory. That is your absolute green light for separation. Of course, there is one exception to this. Up until right now, we've basically been discussing the perfect formula. The parents get aggressive, the fry hit 1.5 centimeters, they change colors, and you separate them. Simple, right? But sometimes, that perfect separation formula gets thrown completely out the window. The twist? The single-parent exception. We do have to address a slightly darker but very real aspect of nature here. In some cases, one of the brooding parents simply doesn't survive. The source notes that while the exact reason isn't always 100% certain, it is typically the female who perishes. And the most likely culprit? The male's aggression in his relentless drive to start a new spawn. It's just a brutal reality of the natural world playing out right there in the glass box of your aquarium. The male's biological instinct to reproduce again can actually become so intense that it proves fatal to his mate. So what exactly do you do when this happens? Well, the solution is actually pretty counterintuitive. You keep the surviving adult right there within the same fry population. Why? Because that adult fish actually serves a really vital purpose now. They'll wander around and help clear up any remaining unfinished fish pellets that the fry leave behind, which is huge for preventing water quality issues. By doing this, the adult effectively keeps the breeding tank in check. Keeping them all together actually maintains the delicate balance of your ecosystem. Which leaves us with this final thought. We carefully measure fry, we track their growth down to the millimeter, we watch for these beautiful, vibrant pinks and bold vertical stripes, all while constantly managing territorial disputes and the sometimes fatal consequences of raw, natural instincts. Breeding cichlids isn't just about moving a fish from tank A to tank B, it's about managing a living, breathing world. So I leave you with this. How do we balance the fascinating yet sometimes brutal reality of creating a closed ecosystem in a glass box? It's a question every single aquarist has to grapple with as they continue to learn about the incredible, complex behavior of these fish. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep observing and keep learning.